Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Big Lee's World. It is I, your host, Big Lee, coming to you live from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, at the infamous, notorious Big Lee's Boom Boom Room. Today, I just want to check in with everybody as we are on the road to one of my projects that many of you all know about is that I am an active member of management at Cape Championship Wrestling, the local indie wrestling promotion right here in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And we do have a show coming up. If you're listening to this right as it drops, it should drop around 7/25, so July 25th. So that show is July 27th at the Arena Building in Cape Girardeau. So if you're hearing this in advance or pretty early, you should still come out to the show. It will be starting at, doors are open at 6, show starts at 7. We do have as one of the special guests is former WWE superstar Ty Dillinger, now known as the chairman of AEW. Shawn Spears is coming in to team with a good friend of mine, Farmer Billy Hills, and another special guest that we have coming in. One of my favorites on the up-and-coming indie scene. I've had the opportunity to see this guy live this past Sunday, which we will get into later in this episode. But he is a star in Game Changer Wrestling. He's a star in AIW. He's a star down in PPW down around the Jeffersonville, Indiana area. Shout out to my boy Too Tough Tony down there that runs the arena there. Much love, brother. And his name is Matthew Justice. This man is a wild, crazy man. He likes to dive off anything, and he likes to hurt people. And let me tell you, when he likes to hurt people, I like to watch him hurt people. So, safe to say that I'm very excited to be having Matthew Justice come into Cape Championship Wrestling. Like I said, that's coming up. If you're listening to this, like I said, on the 25th or 26th or 27th, that will be this Saturday night, the 27th, at the Arena Building in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Doors open at 6. Bell time is 7 p.m. Tickets, I think, are like $13 to $14 at the door. Come on out. It'll be a good time. It'll probably be one of your last chance to see Shawn Spears in a smaller arena before he starts full-time with AEW and doing the weekly television and pay-per-view shows there with them. So like I said, definitely come out and check that out. So, with that being said, this Saturday, the CCW Anniversary 3 show, will be wrapping up my 7 days of Rasslin Adventures. And let me tell you, it's been a wild and crazy 7 days. Took a road trip down to Middle Tennessee. On the first stop, we went to Tullahoma, Tennessee for the first GCW Game Changer Wrestling show of the weekend called Wombat. For those of you that are not familiar, so Wombat was kind of a throwback parody to the early 90s mid-Tennessee wrestling, which pretty well I think could be an assumption that it was kind of a throwback parody to Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And everybody's at one time liked, now pretty well really hated by the internet or in the indie wrestling scene, Jim Cornette being the head of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So just kind of a parody of all it. So it was a pretty good show. We'll go into details of it here in a little bit. But like I said, it was my first time going down to Tullahoma, Tennessee. And let me tell you, if you've never been to Tullahoma, Tennessee, it's roughly about 75 miles away from Nashville off of I-24. And let me tell you, I thought I could take I-24 straight into Tullahoma. I soon learned that the GPS did not like that idea. And, well, let me say that I got to see the very scenic route to Tullahoma, which is a experience and a half. It's kind of weird to be driving through the big city of Nashville, get on I-24 outside of Nashville, and drive, and you take a exit, and the next thing you know, you're going down a bunch of back country roads and side roads, which reminds me of where I grew up at, back down in the Boot Hill, southeast Missouri. So it's just kind of crazy to experience that, and pretty well driving through it was like driving this way, and then all of a sudden, boom, here's a big old city here of Tullahoma, which I know to some people who've been to Tullahoma is like, that's no way near a big city, but where I come from, anything that's got more than like 3 stoplights is a big city. So anyways, we checked in there at the Baymont, got there a little early. First time, like I said, being in Tullahoma, and it was a nice experience at the Baymont. The room was a little dirty, but otherwise it had a bed, and surprisingly it had a refrigerator. And probably the highlight of the whole ordeal of staying at the Baymont was right next door was a Walmart, which many of my travels, I don't think I've ever stayed at a hotel where the Walmart was right there. Literally almost semi-walking distance from the hotel to the Walmart. So any kind of supplies or anything that I needed was just right there. I could go pick it up, and I was good to go. So I was pretty stoked for that. And I got to see my good buddy Andy Lawler. He actually stayed at a few doors down at the same hotel. So I got to kick it with him Saturday night and Sunday. So that it's always a good time it's fun. Let me say this. It's fun to travel by yourself and meet new people. But it's also still fun to be able to meet other people and meet up with them and kind of hang out with them and experience together. So that was a fun time. We looked at traveling. We ended up traveling to the show together because from the hotel to the arena and from the arena back, a round trip Lyft or Uber was like $30. And like I told him, I was like, dude, I'll save $30 and I'll be your designated driver. We'll be good. So ended up driving down there. Ended up the show being at the Gypsy Joe Arena. Local promotion there's arena, the SWF, which apparently a guy by the name of Yukon Jack runs it. I've heard a few things about Yukon Jack, never met the guy, actually didn't meet him there at the show, but apparently I guess he does really good for the local crowd there, and I know a lot of people that have wrestled down there, primarily the hooligans. They seem to work down there a lot, and I've always meant to make it down there for a show, but whenever I got to Nashville, it just seemed like something else came up, and we ended up staying in Nashville, not making that drive down to Tullahoma. So it was kind of interesting to finally make it down there to the infamous Gypsy Joe Arena, which apparently was renamed for the night the White Claw Arena. For those of you that are not familiar with what a White Claw is, let me tell you, I don't really know that much about it either. Apparently, I guess it is an alcoholic seltzer, which, to be honest with you, that's a little bit more fancier than what I am used to, I guess, in general, because I don't know what a seltzer really is, besides it looks kind of like sparkling water. So, to me, I guess this White Claw is just like alcoholic sparkling water, maybe, and apparently I guess it is a really big fad, especially in like indie wrestling. If that's what you're into, drinking alcoholic seltzer, more power to you. Whoop whoop, I guess. So nonetheless, at the Gypsy Joe Arena or the White Claw Arena or whatever you want to call it, we got there and there's a good line there. Always good to see a good crowd at a show like that, especially because you're going down to an area like that. Indie wrestling crowds really differentiate between the areas that you're in. So when we got there, we didn't really know exactly what to expect. I've been to a lot of different indie shows in different areas, and the fans seem to differ from one area to the other. And with this crowd, and I will say that it's probably the most expensive show that Tullahoma has ever seen as far as the ticket price goes. It was interesting to see how much of the local crowd will actually show up for something like this versus if it was just all the people that were there for GCW and then the next night, but the next afternoon in Nashville. So we get in there. It's a very small building, let me tell you. I've been to some shows in some small buildings, and this one takes the cake. I'd actually say we run a show over in Delta, Missouri, usually once or twice a year, and it probably holds about 175 people, including the ring. And this SWF arena made that Delta building feel like Madison Square Garden. So that whole tight, small building just added a little extra to the night's vibe, which I was really excited for. Seating was set up a little different than what I was expecting. When we got there, we'd kind of had the reserved front row, and it ended up being all first come, first serve in the reserve section, so that was a little different. I ended up not getting to sit with Andrew, so there was that, but I ended up actually getting to sit with one of the locals there, who I'm pretty sure did not buy one of them $35 reserve seats, because she was complaining to me about the night before how she had to pay $10 because they brought somebody in that she did not know who it was and was not happy that she had to pay $10 for the ticket. So I'm pretty sure she did not pay $35 for that front row seat. But anyways, nonetheless, she was a hoot to sit by. She was not really fully aware of what she was getting into at a GCW show. And I think for the most part, she probably enjoyed it. I know there were some things that she was not a big fan of. She was definitely, I could say, not a fan of Effie, or I think their tag team was named like Effie Juice. And that made it even better because just to see her reaction to Effie kind of shows you as a society where we are in 2019 and kind of what people are tolerant of in different areas and stuff like that. Personally, I thought it was probably one of the funniest things I'd ever seen. And that kind of got her on the edge there, which really made me laugh. But probably one of the highlights of it was seeing her get so upset. There was a spot in the show where this guy by the name of Nick Gage. Anybody that knows indie wrestling or knows deathmatch wrestling, which I'm a big fan of, knows that the pinnacle of sorts of deathmatch wrestling is Nick Gage, the king, the god. Some of us call him the Lord and Savior of deathmatch wrestling. And he came over and they were doing a spot where they were going around the ringside, and when he did, he spilt her Diet Sun Drop. She was already upset that the wrestlers got that close to her. She was even more upset that she lost her Diet Sun Drop, which just made me about lose it because I could not quit laughing that much. But anyways, back to the show, the Wombat reunion as they call it. It was pretty well set up to be like a whole night of TV tapings of sorts, where most of the wrestlers wrestled at least twice, and they got out there and they kind of built their angles. So it was good to see kind of a mixture of the local indie talent versus some of these known GCW guys. I got to see a couple of my favorites there. Like I said, of course, the Lord and Savior, Nick Gage was there. Mance Warner. Anybody knows me knows I'm a huge Mance Warner mark. I can't say enough great things about the guy. He is on the top of my list to get here to Cape Championship Wrestling. As soon as he has an open availability and we can match them dates up, I want him here so bad. So, big shout out to Mance Warner. If you're listening to this, just know we're going to get you here one of these days. We're going to get those dates lined up and we're going to get you booked here. I got to see him. That was good. Always a great talent. He was actually, one of the highlights was actually seeing him after his match go sit out in the crowd with the fans at the Wombat. So that was really cool. Of course, seeing one of my favorite tag teams, probably one of the most underrated tag teams out there today. Some of the most hardworking guys that I know, and if they're not booked on your show, they need to be. Because they can do just about every style possible. They can do the high flying, they can do the hardcore, they can do the death match, they can do a Memphis style commentary, they can do whatever you need. And that is John Wayne Murdoch and Reed Bentley, the Rejects. Which, when the Rejects first kind of started getting out there, they were called the Tri-Show Rejects. So it tends to slip my tongue from time to time to still refer to them as the Tri-Show Rejects versus just the Rejects. So anyways, it was good to see them. And of course the main event ended up being Tony Deppen versus Bill Dundee. Tony Deppen is one of the most hardest working guys out there. The dude's got great talent outside of the ring. One of the nicest people you could talk to. Very humble, very nice to talk with. And I can't say the same about Bill Dundee. Anybody that knows me or knows people that kind of around this area knows that none of us like Bill Dundee. So anything that Deppen could do, like we were hoping and praying that Deppen would pull it through and just end Dundee, period. But, all's well that ends well. But nonetheless, after the show, it was really cool. Like I said, it was a much smaller, laid back than most wrestling shows you go to. So actually, most of the guys came out, talked, hung out. You had great talks with KG, Kevin Gill. Most of y'all know him either from his podcast or know him from the JCW days. A lot of us, we still remember talking and shooting the bull with him out at Pops out in East St. Louis. So that's always a good time, and glad to see him, caught up with him, talk about not just wrestling, but talk about the hardcore scene and pretty well what it's going to take to get one of my favorite bands, Sick of It All, back to St. Louis, because St. Louis needs a solid Sick of It All show, and it's been way too long since they've had one. So I got to talk with him. Got to talk with Nick Gage a lot. That was really good to kind of, outside of everything, just to kind of hang out and chit-chat with him for a few minutes. It's always a good experience. One of the humblest, nicest dudes in the business that you'll meet is Nick Gage. Inside the ring, the dude is a beast, a monster, but outside of it, very nice, very respectful. He's a great talent, a great human being. Got to talk to the Rejects after the show, which is always good. Like I said, I love talking to Reed, and I love talking to John Wayne, and super nice guys. Can't say enough good things. Overall, most of the people in that roster, I can't say anything bad about. All super nice guys. Like I said, it was just overall, it was a great experience. I got to, at the end of the night actually, or at the end of the show, before we left, I actually got to meet one of my favorite Nashville wrestlers by the name of Brett Eisen. I've seen this guy on Powerbomb TV or Independent Wrestling TV or whatever it's called now. I've got to see them with their local promotion on there, Southern Underground Pro. He is their champion there. Guy kills it. He's a hard worker. Apparently, he's been part of the hardcore scene in Nashville, hardcore music. So anytime a local hardcore scene, a guy gets out there and does anything, we always want to make sure that we support hardcore music in whatever fashion it is, and even if it's an outside project like a hardcore guy getting into wrestling or something like that, we want to make sure that we show support. So when I first got to see him on there, like, I became a fan. You know, it's awesome that he's a big Terror fan as well. So this guy, he's got great talent, and I was hoping he'd get booked on the Wombat Show. However, he wasn't booked on the Wombat Show, but we'll get into that a little bit later. All I got to say for this point is that super nice guy. I got to talk with him a little bit. Another very humble guy, but a beast in the ring, and really honored to meet him. Nothing but well wishes and big respect to him, and I hope he starts getting more bookings and getting out there and getting more exposure, and I think he's got what it takes to be a big name out there in wrestling in 2019. Overall, like I said, it was a good show. The one other thing I do want to talk about the Wombat Show, contrary to what some of the locals thought and things of that nature, no, I am not kin to Uncle Biff. For those of y'all listening who don't know who Uncle Biff is, apparently Uncle Biff is a local wrestler out of the Nashville area. Apparently he is the villain side, or he works as a villain for the local wrestling SWF promotion down there in Tullahoma. And the lady that I had mentioned earlier who sat beside me a couple minutes after I sat down asked me if I was related to Uncle Biff. And I explained to her, I was like, no, I don't know who Uncle Biff is. I've seen one promo that he cut, and it was posted in one of the deathmatch Facebook groups, kind of just introducing him to the deathmatch fans, as that night he was facing Nick Gage in a barbed wire match. Not a barbed wire match, but a barbed wire match. For those of you who have not grown up in the South, a lot of times it ends up being a joke, but a lot of times promoters and matchmakers will not call it barbed wire. I don't know if it's a thing of not knowing how to spell it or an actual punctuation or anything like that, but it is a barbed wire. But a lot of times on the signs and stuff like that, they would put barbed wire, B-O-B, and not B-A-R-B-E-D. So they had that, which was entertaining to not say nonetheless. They had some barbed wire items out there with it. So overall, it was a good show. Andrew and I left the show afterwards. After that, we probably stayed roughly about an hour after the show, kind of talking and meeting with everybody and chit-chatting and catching up. And then we headed out to the local McDonald's. Boy, let me tell you, your McDonald's in Tullahoma, Tennessee, hands down probably the worst McDonald's I've been to. And that's saying a lot, because a big boy like me knows his McDonald's and knows his fast food. From the terrible service to the not very good tasting food, it was almost like it was kind of rushed, and anything we asked for or anything like that was just, we were kind of treated like we were an inconvenience. So it wasn't the best experience at the McDonald's, but then again, it was after the show. We were hungry. We made it work. And then we got to see the Stunt family. They came in after we were there, so we got to chat it up with Marco, with Logan, Papa Stunt, Mama Stunt. I don't know who other stunts, but if there's more stunts that were there, we got to chat it up with them. So it was a good time kind of catching up really with them. Now that we just had a big night there, enjoying their match with them two as a tag team versus AJ Gray and the Psycho Medic, which I had no idea who it was, but I was almost willing to bet that it was Murder One, but apparently it is not. So anyways, we got to talk to them for a little bit, probably more than they expected to, because it did take forever in the day to get food. But nonetheless, it was always good chatting with them, and then headed back to the hotel to get some rest and start day 2 of the wrestling endeavor, which was the GCW weekend in Nashville. So Woke up Sunday, ate some breakfast, got back on the road, headed to Nashville. Something I want to point out to those of you that listen to this in Nashville, I just think this PSA needs to be made. It's called rain. It's water from the sky. When you're on the interstate and it starts raining, you do not need to stop driving in the middle of the interstate and go 5 miles an hour because it's raining. You just drive. It's not going to freeze. It's still like 80 degrees out and raining. It will be okay. Just continue to drive. It's not that big of a deal. So, needless to say, once we got through the rain and got over to East Nashville and parked over at the Basement East where the show was at, got to stand out there and talk to some wrestling fans, kind of killing some time. We got there a little early to make sure that I got one of those free parking spots because anybody knows me knows that I hate paying for parking. So, we got over there, got that, and then about 1:30 rolled around. We got inside and got our seats. It was first time being at the Basement East. It was definitely bigger than the Total Home building, but it was still pretty small, pretty intimate. It's kind of like a dive bar, which was really cool. Anybody knows me knows that like I'm not a fan of big arenas, big venues, things of that nature. I like small, compact venues. It just makes everything feel more intense. Everything is kind of more of you're connected, like a family vibe. So that was pretty cool to be in there. Like I said, there was pretty well like only two sides of the ring that had chairs, and they only had like one row of chairs on each side, which ended up being a good thing later on. And they were nice wooden chairs, which apparently if you break them, it costs $40 a chair if you broke it. So that's another interesting side note. But so we got there, we got our seats, got to talk to Tracy Smothers and Jesse Bell Smothers before the show, which was always... I've talked to Tracy a few times, really nice guy, besides the gimmick, like super nice, very respectful. First time getting to actually talk to Jesse, that she was really nice as well, great to talk to her. Got to see Jerry Lynn, good to see Jerry. You know, we've had him here at CCW, great guy, one of the best legends going out there, and like I said, if you get a chance, have him on your show. He's well worth it, one of the most humble people you can meet. And nonetheless, next thing you know, it was 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon, and it was time for GCW Lights Out to begin. And let me tell you, from start to finish, it was a banger. It's from the opening match, KTB versus Blake Christian, which was amazing. KTB is another great up-and-coming talent. Big fan of his work, and of course Blake Christian, another dude's amazing. Like, this guy's probably going to be the future of indie wrestling at any moment. He's just breaking out. And, of course, we do have him booked on some CCW shows, including the show that is coming up July 27th, CCW Anniversary 3 at the Arena Building in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Like I said, that show is coming up. If you're listening to this early, before the 27th, it is the 27th. Blake Christian will be there. So they had a killer match. Second matchup, boy, that was a war. It was a triple threat tag match. The Carnies versus Violence is Forever versus the Rejects. And, talk about a barn burner. That was a bloodbath. It was violent. It was everything I could hope for and more. First time getting to see the Carnies. Really a big fan of their work. They work together great as a team, and it was kind of interesting to see how they would work with somebody with the Rejects who's known more of a hardcore style, and they did not hold back. Nick Iggy, Kerry Awful, they got out there, and they were not afraid to get rough with Murdoch and Bentley, and this other tag team, Violence is Forever. Kevin Koo and Dominic, I think it's Guarini is how you say it. If I butchered their name, I apologize very much. But first time getting to see those two guys work live. I've seen them on, like I said, the local SUP Underground on the Powerbomb.tv. And it was good to see, like I said, all 6 guys, they went to war. and I couldn't have asked for any more out of that match. Definitely, if you've not got a chance to see the Lights Out show, make sure to hit up Fight TV or Smart Mark Video and get that replay and check it out. It's well worth the money. The only thing that would be better than that is if you could have been there live, which, if you ever get a chance, make sure you go to see GCW, Game Changer Wrestling Live. Like I said, top to bottom, that card, just a great action. They had Tony Deppen versus Rich Swann, which was a classic. Very good comedic style versus some technical with some high flying. Orange Cassidy versus Effie. Let me tell you, you want to talk about a Mac classic. It was just a violent brutality. Everything you could expect from Orange Cassidy and Effie. And then they had probably the match of the night for me. A big highlight. Mance Warner versus Matthew Justice. Now, two of my favorites going head to head. It's going to be a violent match. I'm stoked. I'm pumped. I'm ready for it. What could be better than that? Music hits. Out comes the Pitbull, Brett Ison. And let me tell you, he had a great dynamic to that match. It was a great triple threat. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not a big fan of triple threats, fatal four-ways, 5-man, 6-man, 12-man scrambles, whatever you want to call it. I'm a big fan of just a pure one-on-one brawl. But let me tell you, those three together in the ring, I'd watch it every day. 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Those three absolutely killed it. They took it all over the building. Everything imaginable happened in that match. So, like I said, I hope there's a rematch soon, and I hope I'm back there front row for it. Like I said, it was great. Manser got that W. He hit that pay window, as he likes to say. And like I said, hopefully all three of those guys made it to the pay window that night because they all deserved it. A couple other matches that night had Marcus Crane versus Jimmy Lloyd. That was another great hardcore match. They had the main event, Nick Gage, the King, the God, the GCW champion, versus Marco Stunt. That's right, the King, Nick Gage, versus Marco Stunt. I can tell you, leading up to this match, reading the deathmatch Facebook group posts and things of that nature, a lot of people had Marco down. Not gonna lie, I was kind of interested to see how this was. I've become friends with Marco, I feel like, over the past couple of years with him working for CCW. So, while I love seeing a Nick Gage match and I love to see brutality, still part of me is like, man, I hope he's okay and he's gonna survive this. And I gotta say, not only did he survive it, he held his own during it. And I was really impressed with all he did in that match. Like I said, he held his own. I think he impressed a lot of people. The future is really bright for him. I can't say enough good things about it. So, like I said, if you get a chance, this card, top to bottom, well worth whatever it is, $14, $15 to watch on Fight TV or Smart Mark. And if you're new to Fight TV, you can comment on this below, let me know, and I can give you a first-time user discount code for Fight TV to get you a little bit knocked off of that first purchase, which GCW Lights Out would be a great first purchase for you. So, like I said, overall, that show was great. It's probably one of the best shows I've been to this year. And like I said, check it out if you get a chance. I can't say enough good things about it. Shout out to Brett Lauderdale for putting on a great weekend of wrestling for the fans. Like I said, it was a lot of fun, and only thing that really came bad about it is I do feel sorry for him in the $40 piece chairs, which I will say I held my own for that. There are people that are witnesses, including Pop Stunt, and a couple other people that will tell you, even at intermission, I carried my chair around just so that it would not get broke or get lost. So, I was quite proud of myself for that. So, when it comes down to the books at the end of the year, just remember, Big Lee from Big Lee's World helped save that $40 from keeping that chair getting broke. Nonetheless, like I said, it was a great weekend in Nashville, Tullahoma. Thanks to the locals for being very welcoming to those that I had to talk to at the Walmart and at the wrestling and the hotel and the gas stations and all that. So, except the McDonald's there in Tullahoma, because like I said, those people were just rude, hateful, terrible, and didn't want us to be there. After that, we ended up headed back, drove through the storm to get back to Missouri. which was an endeavor in itself. So I was just like, I was glad to be home. And then, like I said, now we're finish up the road to Cape Championship Wrestling's Anniversary 3 show, July 27th at the Arena Building in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, featuring AEW Chairman Shawn Spears, Matthew Justice, Blake Christian. My brother Farmer Billy Hills is going to be there. Austin Lane, all your favorite Cape Championship Wrestling stars is going to be there. Matthias is going to be on the card. Brandon Barbwire. Like I said, just about anybody and everybody you've seen over the past couple months at CCW is going to be there, including, how could I forget, my brothers in the Wise Church are defending the CCW tag titles against the LA Hustlers. Now, we'd be here for hours for me to talk about my feelings on the LA Hustlers and how they've gotten soft and how they've changed and what they're really going to need to do to get back on the winning path here, which I'm sure one of these future episodes we'll talk about. But just make sure, if you're in the Cape Girardeau area or you're looking for something to do this weekend, make sure to check out Cape Championship Wrestling CCW Anniversary 3 at the Arena Building, July 27th. Doors at 6, bell time is at 7 p.m. I'm trying to think, 410 Kiwanis Avenue is the address here in Cape Girardeau for the building. Tickets between $13 to $14, depending on where you want to set. $20 meet and greet with Shawn Spears as well. So make sure, like I said, if you're looking for something to do this weekend, make sure you come out and check that out. And I appreciate y'all giving me a listen to this and listen to me to tell stories about my adventures this weekend. Shout out to Andrew Lawler for hanging out with me. Shout out to Nick Gage. Shout out to the Rejects. Shout out to Mance Warner. Shout out to Brett Eisen. Shout out to KG. Shout out to everybody that talked to me this weekend, took a picture, traded stories. It was great seeing all of you, catching up with all of you. And as far as the future goes, it looks like, I know Game Changer Wrestling usually puts out a lot of shows throughout every month. I know we got tickets to the one StarCast weekend. I think it's August 30 or 31st, whichever one is a Friday, up there in Chicago. It's a joint show with Black Label Pro. Shout out to Mikey at Black Label Pro. He's doing his thing up there. He's putting on some good shows. If you're up in the Chicagoland area and you're looking in the show, I think he runs around Crown Point, Indiana. Make sure you check him out up there. Check out the shows. He does a lot of great work there. So I know he's doing a show with Game Changer Wrestling as well, that StarCast weekend. And then I believe it is September 21st back in Summit, Illinois for Game Changer Wrestling's NGI4, the Nick Gage Invitational. I went to NGI 3 last year. It was an absolute blast. If you love death matches, you love ultra violence, make sure to check it out. And then, like I said, it's a summer of wrestling shows. That's all I can really say, which I know ends, I think it is October 18th and 19th. That's the other thing I want to talk about before I get off here. October 18th and 19th, I do believe it's a Friday and Saturday. JC's probably going to be really mad at me if I mess those dates up. But October 18th and 19th, Memphis, Tennessee, behind the High Tone, is a Pro Wrestling Trainwreck is doing a Southern Sickness Cup down there. It's their first deathmatch tournament down there. They got a lot of great guys coming in for that. JC Rotten has been putting in a lot of work for this, getting everything ready for the fans. It's a very affordable ticket. It's a very easy trip to make, especially from St. Louis or Cape Girardeau or even Nashville. It's a real easy drive. Make sure it's a 2-day festival or a 2-day tournament. I don't know if you'd really call it a festival or not, but nonetheless, make sure that you hit him up, get tickets. I think you can get them on the High Tone website or wherever the High Tone distribution ticket's at. Make sure to hit him up, John Glenn, on Facebook, or hit up the Pro Wrestling Trainwreck page for tickets and information on that. Make sure you support him. Support deathmatch wrestling. Support indie wrestling. I'll be honest with you, you're not making millions of dollars in indie wrestling. You do it for the passion. You do it for the love of the business. And make sure you go out and support your local indie federation. Make sure you support these local deathmatch shows because they're not doing it for the money. They're not doing it for the fame. They're doing it for the passion and the love of the business. So make sure you go out, support them, show them some love. Tell them you heard about them on Big Lee's World podcast, and maybe I can get some of those guys on here. And speaking of which, guests coming up soon. For those of y'all who can't see, I keep waving my arm in the air like I'm talking in front of a bunch of people when it's really just me staring at this computer and microphone. But nonetheless, here we got a couple of guests coming up. Actually, if all goes according to plan, I've already talked to them about this and kind of put it out there on the socials. But this weekend before the Cape Championship Wrestling Anniversary Show, I'm planning to sit down and do an interview, a one-on-one podcast with Farmer Billy Hills. I put a thing out there who, for those of you who see it, to say, hey, any questions, comments, any things like that you want me to ask Farmer Billy, I will. We'll get that information you've been wanting to know, I guess you could say. And for those that know that on my podcast, we don't really hold too much back. Short of legal issues or things like that, we'll talk about just about anything. So anything you want to know, feel free to let me know, and I'll ask him, as long as it's not something that's going to get me like shot or stabbed by him. So we won't, otherwise we won't hold back or anything like that. We got him coming up. I actually got a message right before I started recording this. Emily Hagan, CCW superfan, wants to come on. Become a good friend of mine. One of my favorite people I've actually met over the past year of her coming in around to the CCW shows and stuff like that. So really excited. She does marketing. She's got some great ideas she wants to talk about. Apparently, I think she wants to talk about makeup or something like that. She told me earlier. I don't really know what she's going to talk to me about makeup about, because personally I feel like I'm pretty enough. I wouldn't need something like that. But I guess she's going to give me some feedback on there. And who knows, she may want to get on here and challenge somebody to a fight at the CCW show. So I'm open for just about anything. So nonetheless, like I said, it should be good episodes coming up. I'm sure we'll have Justin Lane back on soon enough. And then apparently the guest that keeps dodging me, Shannon Stinson, is supposed to have done this podcast now weeks ago. Apparently he's got excuses why he hasn't done it yet. And I know it's going to get back to him, because I know his wife, Leanne, listens to the podcast religiously, or at least a couple episodes that's put up out here. And I know that Leanne's going to make sure that she gets on him and says, hey, you need to get on there and do Big Lee's podcast. So nonetheless, I appreciate everybody listening to this. I really do. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the support. If you haven't, make sure you go hit up the socials. Hit up at Big Lee's World on the Facebook page. Hit up at Big Lee 756 on the Twitter, the Instagram. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, bigleesworld@gmail.com. Once again, thanks for the support. I hope to see y'all out at the CCW show this weekend, CCW Anniversary 3, live at the Arena Building, Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Doors at 6, bell time at 7 p.m. Make sure you come out, show some love, show some support. Let me know you listen to the podcast. Let me know if you enjoy it. Let me know if you hate it. Some people may listen to this and hate it, and I don't blame them. Some people probably don't want to sit here and listen to me talk for 40, 45 minutes. But nonetheless, that's them. That's their problem. So like I said, once again, thanks for the love. Thanks for the support. Like, subscribe, share this podcast. Let your friends, let your fans, let your family know. Let strangers know. I don't care. Just make sure they listen to the podcast. So once again, thanks for the support. I love all y'all. As always, 2 scoops of whoop, whoop, whoop. Have a great week. Bye-bye.